We welcome you to the May 20th, 25 North Carolina Driver Education Advisory Committee Quarterly Meeting. This is a legislatively required committee, which also outlined in the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and State Board of Education Policy. I'm Dr. Cheryl Leonard, Chair of the DEAC, and I call this meeting to order. I want to welcome committee members who are here and online, and also a huge welcome to our on-site visitors and online listeners, as well as our presenters that we'll be introducing shortly. And we have a very full agenda, very tight agenda. And so with that, please be reminded that this meeting shall comply with public meeting laws, including the use of Robert Rules of Order. Also would remind everyone to make sure that their electronic devices are off, and that if as you respond or talk, that you limit yourself for just a few minutes and make sure that we're all respectful of each other's opinions and ideas and thoughts. Our agenda and other materials are available online through the DPI website, www.dpi.nc.gov, on the State Board of Education eBoard page. This meeting is also being auto-streamed through a link located at the bottom of the DEAC webpage, also on the DPI.gov website. Please be advised the meeting is recorded and will be made available via the YouTube app as soon as possible. The members of this committee are vitally important as they represent the stakeholders in teen traffic safety education in this state. And as you know, we've had a lot of discussion about teen drivers as of late, and a lot of things are happening, and we hope to bring much of that information to you today at the meeting. District leaders have also been notified of these meetings, as their need are at the core of our purpose. So, which brings me to the purpose of the North Carolina Drivers Education Advisory Committee shall be to advise and make recommendations to the State Board of Education through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on the implementation of the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and other issues related to driver education and traffic safety. Our mission statement, composed of experienced and diverse perspectives, the Driver Education Advisory Committee provides research-based information and recommendations to the State Board of Education to implement and maintain the Driver Education Strategic Plan. The Advisory Committee advocates for certified professional teachers, highly qualified instruction, and up-to-date curricula to prepare each student to be an informed and responsible driver. I will now read the ethics statement. Excuse me. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting today? Okay. If so, in the event anyone did not hear this, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Okay, so now we will have approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes. At present, the unapproved minutes from the February 18th, 2025 meeting have been made available to each of you prior to the meeting, which you should have had a chance to review. Without objection from the committee, the floor will ask for a single roll call combining the votes for the approval of the minutes. At this point, do I have a motion for the minutes of the February 18th meeting?
Motion.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Second. Okay, Sherry, second. All right, any discussion on the minutes? No discussion? Okay, we'll hold that for a second. The floor will now entertain a motion to accept the agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion for the agenda?
Motion.
Dr. Pearson, thank you. And do I have a second for the motion of the agenda? Second, and who would that be?
Terry Fuller.
Terry. Thank you, Terry. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. So at this time, I'd ask Ms. Taylor if she will do the roll call. And if we could say your name and acknowledge yay or nay for the votes for the properly moved motions of the agenda and the minute meetings.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard. Dr. Cheryl Leonard.
Yeah. Yay for both agenda and minutes.
Eddie Jordan. Tony Moore. Dr. Brandy Gill. Yay for both. Kevin Harrison.
Yes for both.
Sherry Vernelson.
Yes for both.
Terry Fuller.
Yes for both.
Daniel Carter. Tanya Faulkner. Devin Tanner.
Yes for both. Lindsay Jones here for Devin.
Marsha Kelly. Bobby Dixon.
Yes for both.
Lieutenant Kinley Russell. Chad Aharon. Asim McGill.
Yes for both.
Dr. Justin Owens. Kella Hatcher. Ebony Baker. And Josh Norris.
Okay.
Dr. Leonard, you do not have a quorum at this time. Yeah, there's a couple online that just didn't.
And Chad is too, I believe.
Yeah.
I tell you what, for time, why don't we just wait for those that are online to come back? And then I feel like we'll probably have a quorum by the time those individuals.
We could actually move forward with the agenda and,
That's what I just said.
and then, did you
I
say?
just, yes, sir.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
said you were gonna wait.
No,
I'm sorry.
no. Okay, so now I'll turn it over to the DPI update and Mr. Carl Logan, if you will give us an update.
There we are. Too many clicks. Thank you, Dr. Leonard. Everything seems to be moving slow here this morning. There we are. To be brief, pursuant to the State Board Policy ADVS 008, DPI must submit annual membership recommendations to the State Board of Education. The DEAC membership recommendation for this year is that we have two members who are opting to stay on the State Board or the DEAC, Dr. Brandy Gill and Ms. Sherry Fidelson. I was thinking of someone I went to high school with Sherry. Same, you spelled the name the same way. Thank you, ladies, on behalf of the committee of remaining on, and thank you for your service that you've provided for us over the past, actually, 2 years now. And so thank you for staying on. Our student representative, Joshua Norris, has resigned due to a very busy schedule in his educational schedule and his athletic schedule. But we wish Josh the very best in his future and his his participation was vitally important to this committee. And at the upcoming June State Board of Education meeting, the current members will be submitted or have been submitted, and we're going through that process now for the approval. As always, on behalf of the districts and DPI, I want to thank all of you all for your participation and adding to the driver education program. And with that, if there are not any questions, comments, Dr. Leonard, I will yield back to you.
And just as a footnote, we will be looking for a student that will be interested in participating on the committee. So if you are aware of any student, if you're aware of any student interested in participating, let us know, because we will be seeking a student to fill that role that Josh served. So please be on the lookout and let us know of anybody that you know that may be of interest. So with that, we have a number of presentations today, of which I am quite excited about. These are partnerships that we have that reflect the education and the movement, not only of the Drivers Education Committee, but also a number of programs that we have through Governor's Highway Safety, and how we present our traffic safety messages in and around the state. And so the first up on the list, we'll be learning about railroad safety for new drivers, and Margaret Canal, who is the Executive Director and State Coordinator for the North Carolina Operation Lifesaver, which is a nonprofit rail safety education and organization whose mission is to reduce collisions, fatalities, and injuries at railroad crossings and trespassing on or near railroad tracks. She's been with NCOL since 2015 and is very, very passionate about what she does and the information she spreads about rail safety, not only to folks out there that are driving, but also everyone else that has an opportunity to touch the rail in some form or fashion. And she works very closely with Governor's Highway Safety, with our law enforcement, to help them assist us in spreading the rail traffic safety message. So without further, thanks, Canal.
Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all having me here, and I may be familiar to some of you because I do a lot of drivers education outreach. I've spoken at the ADT SEA conference and also the NCDT SEA. I think this is the first year I didn't attend that one, actually. So thank you again for the opportunity. And North Carolina, rail safety is something people don't give a lot of thought to, unfortunately, because it happens a lot. North Carolina is actually currently 12th in the nation in the number of people who are killed walking on railroad tracks. We are 13th in the nation in the number of vehicles or people struck at highway rail grade crossings. That's way too high. People always say, who's number one? California and Texas trade spaces, but we're 12th and 13th. That's considerably way too high. And it's something that's so easy not to do. Trains don't come off the tracks and come after you. If you stay off of them, you'll stay, you know, that they won't come and get you. We also had from 24 to 23 to 24, we had a 30% increase in the number of trespassing incidents, which are when someone is on the railroad tracks without permission. And we had an 18% increase in the number of events that happened at highway rail grade crossings. And these are generally involving a car, a vehicle of some sort. So I do a lot of outreach, as I said, to driver's ed. I do a lot of driver's ed classes. I make presentations, and I really enjoy it. And I think it's very helpful. So I've got a real quick presentation. I'm going to have to talk fast, which I can do. Every 3 hours in the United States, a person or vehicle gets hit by a train. Every 3 hours. About 2,000 people get hit every year, and about 1,000 people die every year in the United States. And it happens everywhere. It's not just here. People don't give a lot of thought to trains, as I said. They really don't think about how long it takes a train to stop. And they don't realize that trains are longer, faster, and quieter than they've ever been before. If you're in your family vehicle and you're driving 55 miles per hour, it's going to take you 200 feet to come to a stop. School bus is going to be 230 feet. A semi tractor trailer is going to be 300 feet, the length of a football field, or in driver's ed parlance, 20 car lengths. A passenger rail or light rail like the Charlotte area transit system is going to take 600 feet, 2 football fields, 40 car lengths. A fully loaded freight train traveling at 55 miles per hour will take a mile or more to come to a stop. In other words, if someone gets hit, the train will stop a mile away from the site of the collision. That's 18 football fields, 352 car lengths. That's something that, again, people don't think about it because television tells us if you wave down a train, they stop where you are and the engineer pokes his arm out and says, what y'all need. It doesn't happen. Trains are longer, faster, and quieter. In these students that you're teaching's lifetimes, they're going to get longer, faster, quieter, and more prevalent. So what would you do if you stopped on the railroad tracks? And I'm telling y'all this because a lot of people don't know. Number one thing to do, get out of your vehicle. Number two, get away. Number three, look for the emergency notification system sign. Is everyone in here aware of the emergency notification system sign? Yes? Show of hands? Yes? No, we got somebody who didn't. It's actually on page 58 of the NC Driver's Handbook, the one that you get online that you used to get for free from the DMV. But this sign, I'm going to run through this real quick to get to here. The emergency notification system sign is at every railroad crossing in the United States. It's required to be there. It has a phone number on it. That phone number goes directly to the train company. If you're in an emergency, any emergency, the gate is not working, you see somebody on the tracks, there's debris, or you're stuck on the railroad tracks. Of course, if you're stuck on the railroad tracks, get out, find this blue sign, call the number on it. You speak directly to the train company. They'll say, train company, what's your crossing number? You give them the number in white. And the number in white will be the crossing number, which is unique to that crossing. You call and say, I'm at crossing, in this case, 836-597H. They'll know exactly where you are. Oh, you're in Apex. What's your emergency? You tell them what the emergency is, and they can slow a train down or even stop it in time to save your vehicle, save your life, and save the railroad, frankly, a whole lot of headache. Now, but a lot of people, their first decision is to stay in their cars, try to get it off, and then call 911. Cut out the middleman, call the train company, and then call 911 because 911 has to figure out where you are, who to call, so on and so forth. So just cut out the middleman. And here's a video. I don't know if this sounds off on me now. Thank you. So, another thing that you want to be aware of is that walking on railroad tracks is dangerous and illegal. All railroad property is private property. If you're on it, you're breaking the law. Taking pictures, using a shortcut, walking along it, whatever. People explore. When I do driver's ed classes, I always ask the students, has anybody ever done this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, why did you do it? And I'm like, because I was bored. And I always say, well, were you less bored afterwards? And they're like, no. So I'm like, don't do it again. I mean, obviously it's not the cure for your boredom. But people don't realize that it is a class 3 misdemeanor in North Carolina, punishable by a fine of up to $350. Or you could be like let me look at this. Last year in North Carolina, 23 people died walking on railroad tracks. So far this year, we've had 5 people killed. The last fatality was over the weekend. I think it was in Cabarrus County. That's where it was. So it happens a lot here, unfortunately. So that's why it's really important for me to be able to talk with driver's ed students, with anybody who listens. So a little bit more about Operation Lifesaver. We were formed in 1972 in response to a record number of people who were getting hit and killed by trains nationally. The program started in Idaho, and then it went spread across the country. North Carolina Operation Lifesaver, which is the organization that I represent, is a part of Operation Lifesaver Incorporated, which is based in Washington, D.C., but there's one of me in almost every state. We don't have anybody, ironically, in Idaho or Utah because they're cowboys and they want to do their own thing. It's fine with that. But so there's another of me everywhere. If you're in another state, you can talk to those people too. The way Operation Lifesaver works is we have volunteers. Operation Lifesaver authorized volunteers who make presentations, who respond to requests. And I have currently about 10 driving instructors who have become OLAVs, and they use materials in their classrooms, in their courses about rail safety, including videos, PowerPoint presentations, so on and so forth. And thankfully, the DMV has agreed to offer continuing education units for the driving instructors who become OLAVs. And then I give them additional CEUs when they actually use the program. There's a system for reporting it nationally, and then I can issue them a CEU certificate for it. So if you, whenever I go to a presentation, to do a presentation or to any organization that might give me access to driver's education instructors, I make sure that I include this slide. Do you want to earn CEUs? Become an OLAV. It's fun. It's easy. And it is extremely easy because I have a thumb drive that gives you everything that you need. It's got videos on it. 30 minutes, play it in your classroom. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from the DMV, especially from your chair. Again, with Governor's Highway Safety Program, Cheryl Leonard has been a huge help. Kenley Russell is also on my board, as is Terry Fuller. DMV has been a huge supporter as well. And I look forward to working with y'all in the future to enhance our program and to get it out to more people. I guess the statistics show that about 150,000 people per year go through driver's ed in North Carolina. That's a lot of people who can learn the lessons now and become safer. Because again, the future is rail, I think, for most people. Because just think about all the number of people who are moving into our state, who are going to be on the highways. And it's important that people know how to maneuver around railroad crossings and how to keep safe. And I think I have one more video, so I need to turn off my mic. You'll do it? I encourage you to visit oli.org. Take a look at the materials that we have there. As you saw in my presentation, we have everything from videos, lesson plans. We have it for every age, from pre-K through adults. We have specific organizations, specific materials for new drivers, specific materials for professional drivers, and it's great information, and it's really easy to access. And one of the things that I always hand out, this actually is my business card, because my contact information is right down here, but it's also a really good fan. And it has great information on it about the emergency notification system sign and about trespassing. So I brought some of these for y'all to use. Every time I go to a driver's ed class, I hand these out and I say, take the blue card, take it home and tell your family, because people don't know about it, about the blue sign. So again, thank you for having me. And see, did I talk fast enough? Okay, thank you. Yes.
You did.
Thank you.
Margaret, thank you very much for that presentation. We applaud all the things that you're doing. I will say that I just recently, and I have in many occasions, have had an opportunity to hear Margaret speak and talk to students about driver's education and the rail and how they intertwine. And we just recently went to Broughton High School to talk to Students Against Destructive Driving class. and their committee, very active committee on how to dispel this information across the board to all other students that may not even be in the SAD chapter. So she's always available. And if you need her, please reach out to her, email her, let her know when you might need her to come and speak. And again, if anybody's interested in being on that committee as an instructor, I know years ago I used to do that as well, and maybe should be volunteering. But I would say that we are very excited about our partnership with you, and we thank you for all that you're doing. Our next speaker is Sherry Renelson, and she's going to be talking about assisting exceptional children to be successful in the driving education process. Sherry comes to us as the section chief of the Sensory Support and Assistive Technology section with the Office of Exceptional Children at DPI. She has a tremendous background and credentials, and recently has been providing significant information to teachers statewide at least 2 North Carolina driver and traffic safety education annual conferences she's been able to attend and present on. And she too brings a wealth of information, and we look forward to hearing your presentation as well.
Thank you. Yes, I had the pleasure, along with one of my colleagues, Libby Loring, who is one of our IDEA monitoring consultants, to present at the North Carolina Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association conference in April. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. And so I'm just going to kind of give a high level overview to keep within my 15-minute time frame here. So the first thing we did was just share some demographic information that shows the number of students with an IEP or a Section 504 plan enrolled in driver's education over the last several years. And then we talked about some of the legal requirements and issues when serving students with disabilities with either a Section 504 plan or an IEP. And 3 laws and policies governing those are North Carolina General Statute, the North Carolina State Board of Education policy, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we started with North Carolina General Statute, and really wanted to this just outlines the administration of driver education program by the Department of Public Instruction. And then we looked at the State Board of Education policy, specifically highlighting the area around reasonable accommodations, and that they may be considered on a case-by-case basis under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and with consideration given to IEPs and Section 504 plans. The ADA is federal law, which is very broad in scope, and also highlights reasonable accommodations that districts may need to make for a student. Also, a part of ADA is Title II. And Title II covers local and state governments and requires that they give people with disabilities an opportunity to benefit from all the programs and services, such as public education. And then also, as a part of Title II, is this notion of reasonable accommodations. And reasonable accommodations should be made unless it can be demonstrated that it would fundamentally alter the nature of the service or activity that is being provided. And then also under Title II, public entities are not required to take actions that would result in undue financial and administrative burden. However, we gave a note of caution here that there is a difference between just, as we say in North Carolina, flat out refusing to make a reasonable accommodation versus not taking an action that is demonstrated to result in undue financial and administrative burden. And so teams really need to carefully consider the request. Our recommendation would be to make sure that that is well documented in a written form as to why a reasonable request accommodation would be an administrative or financial burden. So then the next thing that we did was before the conference, we asked members to submit questions that we could answer for them. And so the first question was really around, what do I have the right to know as an instructor? And so the first thing that we really talked about was consent. It is always best practice to get parental consent when needing to review a student's educational record, to talk to a student, to talk with a student's teachers. So definitely consider that as a first step that would need to be done. Secondly, is this notion of legitimate educational interest. And we talked about the difference between, HIPAA is sort of that medical compliance and rights and privacy. And then FERPA is around the educational component for educational rights and privacy. And so, generally, FERPA prohibits disclosing educational information to third parties unless the parent provides a written consent. But there was this court case out of Texas that looked at an exception to that. Oh, thank you. To that prior written consent that allows what they call school officials to review records under this legitimate educational interest in order for someone to fulfill their professional duties. And so basically this case found that there was no FERPA violation because the public school unit operated the driver education program, and it concluded that the driver education instructor, which was a third party, was this school official with a legitimate educational interest to perform the duties. And so basically a school official that was employed by the district had provided this driver's education instructor with some information about a student with disability. And then the parents said, no, you can't do that. That violates FERPA. And then this case found no, that this was a legitimate interest so that this person, as a school official under contract, could appropriately provide instruction to the student. But again, always contact your school's legal counsel to make sure that you are, following all of the rules and guidelines that district would like you to follow. So as we said, it's always best practice to gain that parental consent first, discuss with legal counsel. Third-party driver education programs may want to put it in their contract when they're working with the district around this. And then always document everything that you're doing. Most schools, when you go into the room where IEPs are kept, it's usually should be a locked room, locked filing cabinet with a sign-in sheet. So make sure you're signing in if you need to review that record. So there's no question as to why you needed to gain that information. And then partner with the special education teacher to help. We find that most special education teachers are more than happy to support the driver education teacher in ensuring that the student and the driver education teacher has a successful experience in driver ed. The next question, or the next sort of part of that was what can we ask? What are we allowed to ask? And, on an enrollment form, it's okay. And again, always consult with your legal counsel, but you can ask a question around, do you or your student require any accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act? And you can give them choices. They can say no, they can say yes, or they can say, I prefer not to answer. That's their choice, whether or not to disclose that information. Then you can ask, do you have an IEP or a Section 504 plan? Again, offering those choices, allowing them to disclose or not disclose that information. But it's not taboo to ask those questions. You're just trying to gain information to, again, ensure that the student has a successful experience in driver education. The next question was just around, do parents need to request accommodations for the classroom portion of driver's education on their child's IEP as a related service? And one thing that we have to remember is that driver's education could be a part of a student's transition plan starting at age 14, because that's when North Carolina starts the transition process. And it is the IEP team, which does include the parent. It is that team's who determines if driver education is a necessary transition activity or service. And then if it is deemed necessary, that transition plan can include specific goals, such as learning to pass a driver test, develop safe driving skills, those kinds of things. And then accommodations may also be included to support student success, such maybe they need extended time to test, or maybe they need some assistive technology. A few examples might be, if a student is deaf or hard of hearing, they wear hearing aids or a cochlear implant, and they utilize an FM system, to access curriculum throughout the day, then they are probably also going to need that FM system when they're in the car driving or in the driver education classroom. And so working with a special education teacher to understand, how does this work? How am I going to use it in the car? Those kinds of things would be important. The next question was just, what were some best practices to support driving instruction for students with disabilities to ensure everyone has a good experience? And we looked at a few things here. Of course, it's always a best practice to have an open and honest dialogue with the parent, with the student, and with the special education teacher and other school officials, to really understand the needs of the student, to understand how to implement the accommodations that a student may need in order to successfully access the curriculum and participate in class. There was also a question, around, what happens if I think a student may, their ability to safely operate a vehicle is beyond what is typical for a teenager. And again, we said, bring those concerns up early. Don't wait, because you just don't want to get to that point where it's almost a point of no return, right? And then the parent gets upset, you get upset, the student might get upset. We just want to bring those things early to the table. And then that allows the team to be able to determine if reasonable accommodations can be made, or whether or not this is going to present an undue financial or administrative hardship, and what we need to do about that. Then we also just looked at what are some best practices in instruction for all students. And specifically, we were hearing that there's a lot of anxiety amongst students when they start, especially the driver portion, the behind the wheel portion of driver education. And so we offered some strategies because the driver education instructor is really crucial in limiting or managing that anxiety during the process. And there's so many just little things that they can say or do or act to calm those fears instead of, ramping them up. Maybe it's just sitting in the car before you even get down the road and just describing, this is what we're going to be doing today, so that they have this picture in their mind of, okay, we're going to go out of the school, we're going to go into town, we're going to do this, or we're going to be driving on the highway. Remember to do this. So just talking out those things ahead of time is really important. And in the presentation that you have access to online, it links to another document that sort of provides these sample statements that can be made. Because I know I'm the kind of person, I'm not really good on the spot all the time. So if I don't have these things sort of committed to memory or in my bank, it's harder for me to call up. And so I like to have them ahead of time to sort of know and practice and go over, just so that I'm being authentic as well, and helping reduce student anxiety. Just trying to make sure I'm touching on everything here. And then lastly, we just provided some resources. This is certainly not an exhaustive list of resources, but some things that driver education instructors can use to help get some additional information about laws and other things related to students with disabilities. So all in all, I think it was a very good conference that they had, and we were excited again that they asked us to come and provide this information, and we hope that they invite us back in the future. We also, I didn't provide it on here, but also had a link and a QR code where at any time they have questions about students with disabilities, they can submit those on a Google form, and that will come directly to me. It will alert me when that comes up so that we can sort of answer that in real time, or provide them with a resource that could help them get that answer if we don't have it. So that's it.
One of the things, and thank you very much for that presentation. I think one of the things that I hear, and based on what you're saying about reducing anxiety, and many of those tips are good not only for exceptional children, but for everybody.
Yes.
And you use yourself as an example. And I would love to see if you have this, you pointed to resources, but is there some kind of document or something that just a short page, or even something as the size of what Margaret had for the rail information that we could disseminate and provide to teachers or to a number of different other partners that we have to provide some of those tips?
I think that's a great idea. The link that is in the presentation does take them to a document that sort of lists out some of those things, but I think it would be really helpful to have something like this that they could have right there with them in the car when they're going. So maybe that's something, Carl, we can talk about that we might be able to do.
And I'd offer this. We do have some grant funds that we provide for educational entities, and even having some currently, we might be able to come up with something and look at presenting and developing and then distributing that in quicker time than during the grant process.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we try to do, not only with this committee, but with all of the entities that we work with, the partnerships that we develop and how we can intertwine that educational information. You know, we do, Governor's Highway Safety does a tremendous amount, and I think a very good job in helping disseminate information. And we do that certainly in partnership with our law enforcement. But I think many and too often times, we are able to take Operation Lifesaver and other entities across the board and bring them together to help disseminate in another, I guess, another culture, if you will. And so here, there's a group that we need to assist with driving behavior. And I can also see that information going to other schools. I know, Joseph, you were talking about what you do and many of the other entities that we have, charter schools that we can pull together this information and help disseminate just across the board. Because unfortunately, not everybody gets to the conferences.
Yes.
And that was just some really good information that I think we could do. And even some of the questions that they may have, if we can already do those frequently asked questions and have the answers to those questions, then they are more likely not to ask them.
Yeah.
Because it'll be right there in front of them. So,
Yeah. I like that.
so we'll do that. All right. Okay,
Thank-
thank you so much. Did you have?
I did, actually, I have to apologize to a number of people who were in another meeting and it just came in right at the end of your presentation. So I apologize to them. We have them now. I want to ask you a couple questions. One is the information you said that was the reference material could be accessed through the presentation. Is that the same one that I posted on eBoard?
Yes.
So if they go to eBoard, they can click on your presentation and then,
Yes, there's hyperlinks throughout the presentation. Should be a blue underlined hyperlink, and that will take them to the resources, the linked resources.
awesome, awesome. You and I had discussed professional development before the meeting started. How could teachers locally access professional development in this area? This happens to be the hottest topic. Whenever I visit locally to districts, this is probably 60–70% of the conversation. Trying to teach students with, or even learning about students or finding out that they have learning disabilities and didn't know before they got there. I know you get this question all the time for me, but.
Sure. So, you know, I'm with the Office of Exceptional Children, and one of our mandates is that we provide professional development all across the state to public school units. Anybody can go on, we have a calendar on the website that lists all of our professional development, and anybody can attend those. And some of it's very specific on specific disability categories. So if you need to know more about students with autism, you could look for trainings on that, or students who are deaf and hard of hearing. I would also, you know, whether you're employed by a district or, you know, a third party, a contractor, you know, talk with the district about being included in professional development that's being offered within the district to help you understand students with disabilities better, right? Because there are oftentimes there could be different characteristics among the different disabilities that you would want to know about. So you could, if a certain attribute is being displayed, you know, knowing, okay, is this just the student or is this part of the disability, right? And how do I deal with that? You know, I would offer that. Maybe you include it in your contract that there will be some professional development provided by the Office of Exceptional Children within the PSU to help driver education instructors understand more about students with disabilities and how to engage them appropriately and have a successful, you know, driver education experience.
So as we move forward, I can meet with you and we could figure out how to make a intersection of my website at DPI to yours?
Sure.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. You also, can I have a follow-up question?
No.
Try to put, I'm gonna wear it, sure, yeah. You just appeared at the North Carolina Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association's annual meeting, conference again this year. And you were very well received last year and again this year. Thank you so very much for coming in and representing DPI. What was some of the feedback that you received from the teachers and attendees at the conference?
Yeah, so they sent us, there wasn't a lot, but I think about 20 people provided some feedback on that. And overall, it was very positive feedback. I would have pulled up those specific comments. There weren't, it was mostly just, was this, good for you, kind of thing. And everybody said yes. So, but if there's any additional feedback that people have or other questions, I encourage them to go to that Google form and submit, questions, or email me directly, anything, questions that they may have,
Oh my,
feedback.
email you directly?
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, as always, Sherry, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with them at my request, and also to be here again today, and also for re-upping on and serving a second term, 2-year term for the committee. So thank you so much for that, Madam Chair.
Okay, again, thank you, Sherry. Our next presentation is really almost a family affair. We have Daniel Finley, Dr. Daniel Finley, who I have worked with for many years. At the beginning of my career, we did a number of projects dealing with red light running cameras and exceptional things. And of course, he kept moving up and going to Washington and back and et cetera, et cetera. So kind of lost track of him a little bit. And 15 years later, I have a young lady that's standing before us, Sophia, who is his daughter, who is now also very savvy in transportation and interested in traffic safety and spreading those messages. And we are so delighted to have her as well. And I'm so fortunate that I never aged during those 15 years, that I've still stayed the same. But yet here we have a new person helping us spread traffic safety. Sophia Finley is a current sophomore at Cary High School in Raleigh and has completed, pardon me?
First year.
Freshman. Yes. Did I say that? What did I say? Oh, did I say sophomore? Because you have sophomore on here. That's why I said it. So I'm just promoting you to go ahead, skip that here and keep right on going. And has completed the traffic safety education. We understand that you've recently received your North Carolina's Learner's Permit. Very good. While celebrating your birthday in Nags Head. So that's a great thing. Clearly my invitation got lost in the mail. She's a seaman in the Navy and the junior ROTC. She's an exceptional child, no doubt. And I am quite excited about that as well, being a Navy brat. So we are very excited to hear all the things that you're going to tell us, your perspective of traffic safety education. And of course, I can't admit the fact that your mother is also a very important part to this, not only for your upbringing, but clearly Rachel Finley is the Senior Director of School Nutrition and District Operations at DPI, where driver's education falls under. So we are quite excited about having your mother as well as part of this. So we are going to hear from Sophia, and then we're also going to hear from Dr. Finley, her father. So proceed.
Thank you for having me here. I'm here to talk about driver's education from mine and other students' perspectives.
There you go. There you go.
As was already mentioned, but I'm a freshman at Cary High School. I participate in the NJROTC and I play women's varsity lacrosse. I got my permit in Nags Head and I took the classroom portion of driver's ed at Cary High School and the behind the wheel portion at a private driving company. I think the classroom portion was very lengthy and it felt like a lecture to me. Staying 3 hours after school just wasn't good because I felt very tired and I didn't fully absorb the material. But I felt like it was really good when learning common road rules and laws. I took my behind the wheel portion through a private company because at my school there's a 5-month backup with classroom and driving. But overall, I feel like the driving portion was a good amount of time and it was good learning how to drive. Oh, yo.
Cindy, do they point at your computer?
Yeah.
Can you operate manually?
Okay. To understand other students' opinions on the driver's education, I created a survey for students to take, and I got responses from schools in Wake County all the way up to Graham County. One example of this is how I said that my school had a 5-month backlog, but in Graham County, they were able to drive within a week. So it really just depends on where you are in North Carolina. But out of the 53 people that responded to my survey, 47 of them said that they have taken driver's ed and only 6 haven't. I asked the people who have not taken driver's ed why. Only 1 said that they don't want to drive. Another said that they're waiting until they're 18 because it makes the process a lot easier. 3 people said availability because the class rarely has any spots. And another said that driving is just very expensive. Another question I asked was what the students liked about the classroom portion. Overall, they said that it was easy, informative, and helped them become a better driver. Then I asked them what they disliked about the classroom portion. And they said that it felt unengaging, it felt like a lecture, and it was just too easy. Then I asked students the things that they liked about the driving portion. And they said that overall it was easy, informative, and feel like it helped them become a better driver. And the things that they disliked about the behind the wheel portion was that it took too much or too little time. Some students said it was a bad experience or the instructor just wasn't informative. And then if I were to create a program, I would like it to have a classroom portion during the school day because 3 hours after school is just really not great because we go to school from 7 in the morning and then staying until 5. Everyone's very tired and they don't really fully absorb the material. And then the ability to retake classes if you have an absence, because currently if you miss a class, you have to take it the next month. And that just doesn't really work because it stretches out that time for getting your permit. And then the last thing would be more exercises that involve active learning, because right now we just sit and look at slides and listen to our instructor teach, and it's just really unengaging. And then I created 3 things to keep and 3 things to change about the program. My 3 things to keep are the behind the wheel timeline, because students like the couple of sessions for a couple of hours for getting behind the wheel. The second thing is the quiz retaking ability, because retaking the quiz not only improves their grade, but it improves how they look at the material and they can really find what they did wrong and know it for next time. I said the second thing to keep is the quiz retaking ability, because it helps students look over the material and find out what they did wrong so they can absorb the material for next time. And then my third thing is the breaks around every hour, because They help to have some free time and just to relax. And then I have my 3 things to change. The first thing is the behind the wheel driving availability, because right now, at least in my county, there's that 5-month backup and it just isn't working for students who are trying to get their permit on time. The second thing is a lockdown browser, because I know from my class, a lot of students, instead of going back and looking in the slides in the program, they just look up the answer, and it really doesn't help them learn the material and figure out what they're doing. And the third thing is the class times, because again, having it 3 hours after school just isn't good for the students being attentive and ready to learn. But that's all for my presentation, but I'll take any questions at this time.
Madam Chair, I am so excited for you to be here, Sophia. Do we need to write you a note for being out of school? I hope your principal. Wonderful, wonderful. I have to think back now just a little bit before coming to DPI in this position. I was a coordinator for a school district, and I loved going into the classrooms and interviewing the kids. And my first question to them was, what in the world are you all doing sitting here after school taking driver education? And they all were blown away at my response, because I'm the director of the program. But I really wanted to understand how important this was to them. Because back in the day, I'm not looking at you intentionally, Sherry, but back in the day, this was a rite of passage for students from being a child to being able to operate a motor vehicle and drive down the highway. So you made a lot of great statements here, and I want to go back just a little bit to review these, especially in the area of, if you had created a driver education program, what would it look like? The length of the class, you said was 3 hours?
Yes.
It's unfortunate that when the program was originally created, it was designed to be taught in the school day, which is about an hour. So that means you're going to be in this for 30 days or even 6 weeks to take the course. So you think that you recommend that we actually recommend to the school districts to lengthen the amount of days that they actually take the course and to shorten the class periods.
I think that would be better, because as of right now, also, we only have 1 class a month. So having it lengthened wouldn't really impact the amount of classes. 'Cause at least at my school, there's only 1 class per month. So if we just had it for a longer time, I also think students would really understand the material and it would help them become better driver.
Wonderful. And the reason I asked you to repeat that was because we actually created a digitized program, and one of the coordinators just stepped out that piloted that. It has all those capabilities of students being able to retake quizzes and things like that. Like you said, it's perfect. Repetition is best. Also, it encourages teachers not to lecture as much. So and I was glad to hear you say that. That's actually the lowest form of teaching is, remember, what, 5%. Of course, your mother's a teacher. I have to rely on her. Is it still about 5% in the educational pyramid? I think it's about 5% if you remember 5% of what you remember in a lecture. So having the students engaged, I love that, engaged in the classroom is very, very important. You also said that it was too easy. What do you mean it was too easy?
Well, this is also from other students, and that's mostly what I got. But I think by saying it's too easy, it's just everything on the slides is in the quiz, which I actually like, but a lot of students felt like it was too easy because you just look at the slide and then look back at the quiz. But I think that's good because it helps you learn, because you have to remember what you saw on the slide and then go to the quiz and put it in on the quiz. And then once you get that correct, it's in your brain.
What if you were, I think I'm getting this visual image of a classroom. You like the material, but you would like to have it more engagement by having open conversations with other students in the classroom, sort of like an open classroom or a team-based learning atmosphere.
Yeah, I think working in smaller groups and having more like hands-on things and visual things that we can see, because also at my school, we had people that came in and brought real life examples into our class to explain how driving really works. And I also think just working in smaller groups and collaborating with people in that class could also help.
So you're talking about when you say when people bring in guest speakers like
Yes.
Operation Lifesaver. I know you've been, Margaret, to many driver's education programs. So having that as an added bonus, I guess, of other information. Do you find that information on the quiz as well?
No, not really. Well, we have most of what the guest speakers say. It's different from the quiz because on the quiz, it's everything in the slides. It gets put on the quiz. So it's like very, like on a strict of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
example of what's on the slides to on the quiz. But when guest speakers come in, it's just more of it's more engaging for students because it's someone who is like handing out things, handing out prizes for getting a question right and answering stuff. And it's just more engaging for the students to see someone else and hear their experiences than listening to someone talk about slides.
I agree. What's interesting to me is my dissertation was very similar to this. So I don't know if it validates for me that what I heard is actually what the students believe, or it validates for you that you're ahead of the game and you could take my dissertation and write some more stuff and be a doctor, or your father became one. So there you go. I would also ask the question, we had in my experience in talking, we had a lot of students that were not really excited about the 50 hours. And I think at that point it was 40 hours, maybe, when they had to do it before it changed, and driving with the parent. And I would say a vast majority of students, when I asked the question about them driving with someone to get experience, it was like, yeah, wink, wink, nod, nod. We did that. And then, of course, there was a signature to that document, but they really didn't. And that was the backstory. They really did get that experience. Did you find that talking with your colleagues?
Do you mean practicing driving after getting the permit? Well, I didn't ask that question on my survey, but I know with my friends, they don't like cheat on the driving portion because they want as much experience as they can get. That way they're prepared for the test, the actual getting your full license, and they're just prepared for driving in general.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Unfortunately, the ones I surveyed, they had a different philosophy about that. So I'll leave that at that. Thank goodness I'm past that limit, right?
I have a question for you, Sophia. First of all, you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. I think it's so important for this committee to hear from students, from the people who are actually taking the course, right? So, and I love that you did a survey. That was really, really wonderful. You brought up that you're a student athlete. And when my girls were in high school, they were also student athletes, but I'm wondering about students who are they're in multiple sports. And if you heard from them on how easy or difficult it is to get enrolled in a class, because if you have to go to the course after school and they're in multiple sports, one after the other, if they found it difficult to enroll, if they had to default to a private, instead of being able to do it through the school versus, if it was during the school day.
So this actually happened to one of my friends. She just didn't come to practice for like 3 weeks because it's the same 3 hours after school is the same time practices. And so she just couldn't go. Because luckily with me, I wasn't in lacrosse when I took my classroom portion. But with my driving portion, because I took it private, I got to take it faster. And I know, but with driving, as well as actually happened to another one of my friends, they just didn't go to practice for 3 days to take the driving portion. But since it's only those 3 days, it wasn't as harmful as the 3 weeks.
The last question I have for you is, well, one quick comment. The backlogs in schools, it's not widespread yet, but we're approaching it. Last year we had 51 districts who taught less than 70% of their students. I'm anticipating that to go a little bit higher this year as our teacher shortage increases. So that's unfortunate. We're working on other strategies, and something I forgot to share, Leonard, in my update is that DPI will be putting out a survey here very soon to survey districts on a possible another strategy of a receipts-based funding strategy for the program that we used to have here at DPI. The last thing we'll segue into getting Dr. Finley up alongside you is there's a lot of states that have began kind of migrating toward parent-taught driver ed. You said that the driving with the teacher was very, very important, which the national standards also recommend 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours of driving with the teacher, as opposed to the 6 hours that we have now, which is actually the minimum. Like to include Dr. Finley on this, and of course, Ms. Rachel, Mrs. Finley, my immediate manager. So I don't want to make her mad, but how good of drivers are they? No, that's not what I meant to say. What about including the parents into this? And Dr. Finley, you can come on up if you'd like. What kind of I mean, how important is that parents be learned or have a background and understanding of what traffic safety education is about? Of course, your father is probably the expert in education, traffic safety education in the state, one of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot easier for me to learn and learning how to drive with his knowledge because I grew up knowing a lot of rules and laws and other just common driving knowledge. So it was definitely a lot easier for me. But I know a lot of students don't have parents that have the same job that he has, so it's just not as easy for them.
Yeah, I think to me, what illustrates observing people is the culture is so important, and the culture we set in our household and also in our communities are very important. I actually was giving a kid a ride home from a football game, flag football that I was coaching, and he took his seatbelt off when we pulled in his neighborhood. And so I stopped and like, what is something going on? No, this is where I normally unbuckle. My mom allows it. I said, well, not in my vehicle. You're going to buckle back up, or you can get out and walk if you want to walk. It would be fine. So I do think that's a huge part of it. You know, we've got to take that responsibility. The 60 hours is extremely important. I mean, we need to be thinking about it from our perspective. If your child is in a crash because you cheated on the hours, that comes back on us. It's so easy now because actually the 60 hours, you can do it on an app. So you've got no excuse. Whenever she gets in the driver's seat, before she gets in the driver's seat, I say, you know, start that on your phone, start the app, and it records you. And every week it sends you an update. It's a very seamless process. The only thing to remember with that is DMV will not accept your phone. You have to print it out. So that's the only thing to make sure you remember when you go to get the actual license, that you have that printed out and not just on your phone.
And, you know, that allows for the accountability, you know, that technology to be able to put it now. Now, the other caveat to that, not everybody has that technology. And if students have older parents or more mature parents, then they might not know how to do that. And of course, you know, students know how to do all of that. But again, you want a student that's not going to try to manipulate the system either. So just being positive and upbeat with all this processes, you know, it's different. I sit back here and I think, and I'm not saying you say back in the day, I'm not admitting that my back in the day is further than his back in the day, but I will say that, you know, when I learned driver's ed, it wasn't during the classroom setting. And I've always wondered why that dispelled and became the back door of getting that educational driving? And you may have the answer. Some of you may have the answer to that. I don't know. Why did it end up being after school 3 hours?
That
You've all
goes,
been smiling. I mean, do you?
that goes, yeah, that goes back to the early 90s when driver ed was taken out of the standard course of study, and then it was made into, I guess, put into an area called a part of school life. And then we kind of switched from an educational setting to a more administrative, and that's a great segue to what I wanted to state is that we're set up now for administration as opposed to education. And that's why the classes have gotten so long that we're basically moving through the program just to get the 30 hours in and just to get the 6 hours in. Because that was at least a semester long course that was created back. And I heard a speaker speaking nationally, and he said it was created during the Truman administration. And so that was even before me. So the Truman administration is when driver education came on the scene back in the 40s. I think 1948 is when they had the first person in my position here at DPI. And then we didn't have the first curriculum until in 1958, the year I was born. So you can see how old things are and how long this program's been around. But the question about the parents, there's something called the National or the Novice Teen Driver Education Training Standards. They have 5 areas. The last one, and unfortunately is the most important one, probably the least used, or the segue to parental involvement. And just what you just said, Dr. Finley, was that your the parental, I guess, the climate culture that you create there is what the student carries through, and it's unfortunate that the de-emphasization, I couldn't even get that out, of the program, we're losing that, and then my mind is racing here. I'm trying to figure out how we can better equip our teachers, our districts, or inform our districts how important this link is between you in the classroom, you in the car with the students, and then getting that information to the parents so they can carry that message forward. Any comments on that?
And that's a good segue because you're already at the podium. I will say, for those of you that are not aware, Dr. Finley is an associate director with the Institute of Transportation Research and Education, which we affectionately call ITRI for North Carolina. It has been a part of North Carolina DOT for many, many years. He came from North Carolina State University, another institution that is extremely important, and a licensed professional engineer. And he also is an adjunct professor at NC State University as well. And I think with all that you're saying, it almost would be, I think you said it, Sophia, you're very fortunate, and it's a unique anomaly that your father is so into traffic messages, and there are a lot that are not. If there's some kind of program in itself, they have programs all over about teaching young people how to be parents. Why can't we teach people how to be better drivers, or teach people that are parents on how to teach their children on how to drive? And how early did you say you started teaching her?
I remember her at 2 would be freaked out if I started the car, just turned it on without being belted. And I love that. I'm like, I don't know if she's going to be in therapy later because of this anxiety of wearing her seatbelt, but we lead the seatbelt study for the state of North Carolina. So we send out teams across the state to measure seatbelt usage. And that's always been very important. Even when I was a kid, we grew up always wearing our seatbelts, and the same thing with them. And the other thing I've done from a young age is, and I did this purposely, I never told her this, but from the time she was probably 5 or 6, I would hand her my phone because we'd need to stay in contact with texting or something. I'd give her my phone to be like, hey, text mom that we're headed, we're on the way. And that way she's seeing that the driver shouldn't be doing this. someone else in the vehicle can do it or nobody should be doing it. And so I think that's another thing that we kind of instilled early on. She actually did it this morning. We were sitting in traffic on Wade Avenue. And I said, here's my phone, plug in. I said state legislature building because I knew that'd be in the general direction and just to help on the map side. So I think that's another thing that we should be aware of. It's so frustrating when you're in the car with something. I'm like, don't be on the phone when we're driving. Give me the phone. I can do directions. I can do a text message. So I think all these things are little tips that we can do as parents to help train our students, our drivers. Dr. Leonard, the NC Vision Zero program that I know we've been involved with since the inception, has a lot of materials like this that are geared towards teen drivers, towards parents, towards those different audiences that can be helpful. So if you're looking for those materials, they're out there, and we can certainly be part of that, setting that driving culture, start in your household, and then that spreads. And she's an advocate with her friends. She knows a huge risk to us is a backseat passenger that's unbelted, because that's 100, 150, 200 pounds of force that if you get hit, they're now impacting you. And a lot of people die from a backseat passenger impacting the front seat when you're in a crash. So there's lots of little things. If we do the basics, wear our seatbelt, don't speed, don't be under the influence, and don't be distracted. That's not a long list, right? We all can do this. We have to do our part. They watch us. If I'm up there on my phone, she's going to see that and she's going to start doing it. So I think all this is very important. The parents have to be involved in this.
We do all kinds of presentations go out, and we've got things scheduled coming up in different smaller communities that have fairs and, all kinds of activities. Again, we could do these little cards, the rack cards, with how a parent can train their child to drive. I mean, just start at 5 years old and then have those little tips. And it would be enlightening, I think, for parents and others, even brothers and sisters that are now the transportation, taking the little ones around, how they can educate each other about that as well. And those are the kinds of things that we have learned that people are more in tune to look at and read, as opposed to a flyer that's this big or something that's like 8.5 by this big. People just they don't read them. They don't absorb the information. But something as small as what she had, that's what they see, and it's colorful. And even if they use it for a fan, it's still information that they're going to read at least one time. But those tips are invaluable. I mean, this whole presentation piece is invaluable to hear, because this will be a conversation, no doubt, and everybody that's listening to this, when they get home. I just heard somebody talk about how they educated their 5-year-old on how to use, not how to use a phone, because no doubt she probably knew how to use a phone better than you did, but at least that physical being of what they need to know. Because I think if you see it, you'll pay attention to it. Because I know children in the back seat will say all the time at the fair, we'll ask the parents, do you text and drive? Children are sitting there and they smile and they look up at their parents, and we all know what the answer is, but then the parent goes, well, I try not to. Okay, well, that's not the answer we want to hear. So this is another way to help change that driving behavior.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many components of it, but at the end of the day, I think it's a very simple thing. And what's very promising about our state is we have so much expertise from Operations Lifesavers, Governor's Highway Safety Program, NCDOT, Highway Safety Research Center at UNC, the Injury Prevention, IPRIC, Injury Prevention Research Center. We were the national model for Click It or Ticket. The graduated driving license system, all that came out of UNC, Highway Safety Research Center, and IPRIC. This expertise, not just state leadership, but these are leaders who are part of this committee too. I mean, a lot of this committee are those familiar names. They're national leaders, national experts in this. And I hope we'll just continue that long legacy and that long history of having our drivers be properly trained, properly educated, and then also sharing that message with parents and students as well. And we share the road with these teens. We should all, I mean, it's everyone's best interest, even if you don't have a teen, if you're not a parent. It's in your best interest that our teens are well-trained drivers. We're sharing the road with them. There's pedestrians, there's bicyclists that all rely on them being careful and cognizant drivers. There's been research done where they instrumented vehicles with cameras
with the parent's permission in the vehicle. But 50% of rear end crashes by the teen drivers in this study, they never even hit the brakes because they were distracted. Because the first couple of weeks, everybody's on their best behavior with the cameras in the car, right? But a month later, everybody forgets and you're going to be your normal self. And so they were so distracted, they didn't even hit the brakes when they rear-ended somebody that was stopped at a red light. So we've got to get out of that habit. We've got to start early. We've got to make sure that they're aware of the risk that we're doing. And we really have it is the most risky thing we do for most of us, unless we're doing a very risky profession. The most risky thing we're going to do is be on a sidewalk or on a bicycle beside the road or be in a vehicle. It is. And we've all got to take responsibility for that. We've already heard 5 people have lost their lives trespassing on railroad tracks. Every day in our state, we lose about 5 people on our roads. It's too many. And that's what Vision Zero is about, that we really should be aiming for zero. That's what we should be working towards. All those lives are meaningful, and we have to do our best to try to end road violence and traffic fatalities.
If you don't mind, I can end this on a funny story.
Okay.
I was when I first come into this position, I was on the task force with Vision Zero, and I met Dr. Finley there, and so I've known him since 2016, I guess. And then a few months ago, I see Rachel back there; she's dying laughing now. So I'm talking to Rachel for a couple of weeks into this, and I never put the 2 names together. And she told me that her husband was Daniel, worked with Vision Zero. And it's like, wait a minute. The Dr. Daniel Finley that I've known for 10 years, she says, I wonder when you were gonna get that. So she was a little disappointed at my degree of sharpness was not what. So anyway.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity to meet with this committee.
Absolutely. I will say one little tidbit, the app that you require your child to use, just as a footnote, those of you that are state employees, they're also putting these instruments under the car or in the car to identify how fast you're going. And they're reviewing those at this point. So it's amazing the number of state employees that their driving behavior will soon change because of that documentation and that data. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It is. There's lots of tools. Let's use this technology for our benefit. I mean, there's plenty of apps that do this. And again, just to clarify, the DMV app the app that we're using to track the hours isn't required. It's still a paper form is fine. But I just know the risk of keeping that paper form over 12 months is likely to end up somewhere it shouldn't be. So we're doing the app, but the paper form is still there too.
That's great. That's great. Thank you both
Yeah,
very much. And thank you for being able to be here and attend. We're delighted that you were able to. We know you're very busy, and that other meeting obviously had an emphasis for you to be there. But we are so glad you were able to make it here, and we thank you all. As a unit, to be able to do safe driving behavior, educate, and help us all figure out how to navigate the roads. Because there's no doubt in my mind that this young lady, it will be equally as evident in an agency, whether it be the Navy or whatever entity that you go to help spread traffic safety messages in and about. So we applaud all 3 of you for that. So thank you all very, very much for being here and for raising a student that is in the Navy. Yay. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so our next piece is Chad, if you will, Vice Chair, if you'll talk a little bit about the subcommittee notes.
All right, well, I guess it's my turn. Real quickly, Dr. Leonard, is my friend Margaret still there?
Yes, she is.
Could you tell her that her husband owes me barbecue? He still has not given me a barbecue. So
I'll get right on that.
I need some. All right, so real quickly, a couple of notes. Okay, although we have no committee reports for you today, please know that there are ongoing efforts of the subcommittee areas to best support our districts. Just a quick reminder of the many avenues which DPI travels to remain connected to the local districts, the many traffic safety associates and stakeholders agencies. Also note there are 5 subcommittees which are named and used in the novice teen driver education and training standards, commonly referred to as the national standard. They are program administration, education/training, teacher certification, DMV/DPI collaboration, and parental involvement. The national standards have been a critical resource for the administrative progress and recent success of the program. North Carolina is considered the most progressive in the implementation of those standards by the American Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association, which is a recognized leader for novice teen driver education nationally. Subcommittee meetings observe public meeting laws as well. We encourage all stakeholders, especially our local district leaders and educators, to stay connected as we negotiate these historical critical times of the program. Now, before and Carl's gonna yell at me, before I turn this back to Chair Leonard, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sophia, and hopefully everyone's listening to her and how her kind of views are Mr. Logan's views move forward. I mean, I know we keep talking about back in the day, it was in the classroom and so forth. She's telling us to move forward. She's saying that there's no longer a need for kids to sit there for 30 hours per se. Let's start offering hybrid courses, partially either on Canvas or Google Classroom. She's also saying, just like a county next to me, have morning classes, have weekend courses, right? I mean, there's so many different avenues that we could do for these students to get to the same portion and the same part and the same path, I guess, as long as the standards remain high. So I thought that was really interesting, and how, for I guess a sophomore, how intellectual and smart she is, and how she sees the future of driver's ed, and it needs to be implemented hopefully sooner rather than later. Now with that, my little soapbox, I'll turn this back to Chair Leonard.
Thank you so much. And I think we will be taking some of that information and bringing it forth in our subcommittees to maybe massage some of those suggestions along the way to see whether or not they may be viable in taking to the boards and looking at some of that strategy, not only to provide information out there, but to also train our young people. So thank you for your presentation. Again, at this point, we will talk about policy revision recommendation from DPI, the ADVS-008, to continue providing the best support to the districts and this statutory required committee. We, the committee, as well as the DPI leadership, have discussed strategies to reduce processes citing efficiency. Annually, the DEAC has to submit a membership request to the SBE. To ensure the most effective use of time and the efforts on reduced staff, as you all know, DPI is recommending revisions to the policy. In short, this is an action item requested by DPI, and the revisions we are asking for ultimately allow the membership updates to be approved by the state superintendent instead of having to go an additional step to the state board. So you received a handout to exhibit the recommended changes to the mentioned policy, and I think we've got that on the screen as you see. I will not read that to you. What we'd like to do is have a motion to approve the DPI recommendation as presented, so that we can use those proper channels. Is there a motion to recommend accepting these changes?
Motion.
Okay. It's for
Sheriff Nelson.
and second.
I'll second. Eddie Jordan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jordan. And with that, is there any discussion? None? So Ms. Taylor, will you call the roll? And those approving say yes.
Dr. Cheryl Leonard,
Yes.
Eddie Jordan,
Yes.
Tony Moore, Dr. Brandy Gill. Yes. Kevin Harrison,
Yes.
Sherry Vernelson,
Yes.
Terry Fuller, Daniel Carter, Tanya Faulkner, Lindsay Jones,
Yes.
Marsha Kelly,
I'm here.
Bobby Dixon,
Yes.
Lieutenant Kinley Russell, Chad Aharon,
Yes.
Asim McGill,
Yes.
Dr. Justin Owens, Kella Hatcher, Ebony Baker, and Josh Norris. So that's 10, but we have a few that are logged in that.
Okay. All right. And so we had a quorum for earlier this morning and we have one now. So thank you, Mrs. Taylor, very much for that. And with that, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say?
Just a quick follow-up on what this means is basically that we're moving 3 members from the group that shows up on the screen here into another group. Currently, there are 11 agencies that have that appoint their own representatives, and this moves DPI into that area as well. And it eliminates the need for us to move forward to the state superintendent, as you mentioned. Also, the State Board of Education annually has to approve the chair, and so that's also being in this group that would be actually approved by the state superintendent instead of State Board of Education. So this was a recommendation, and so now that we've passed this committee, thank you very much for this action item and quick response. Get her done, as they say sometimes out there. But I appreciate this, and this will help out tremendously as we move forward with administering the program, given that we have reduced personnel. So thank you so much.
Okay, absolutely. So with that, are there any other comments, questions, anything that we might need to bring up?
All right.
All right, so our next meeting is scheduled for August 19th, 2025 from 10 to 12, and it will be here. And so we will also have the virtual option if anyone cannot attend. But however, we do encourage face-to-face meetings and would love to see folks if at all possible. So feel free to come on down, and looks like they're tearing down buildings, I'm sure, opening up for more parking spaces. Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, good luck. But it is an interesting watch as they're tearing the buildings down as we speak. So with that, thank you all very much for participating, for being, those of you online, being able to participate. Certainly all of our speakers today, wealth of knowledge, wealth of information. Can't wait to take a lead on some things that we talked about. We encourage anyone else in their world to be able to come to us with a presentation in future meetings. We're always looking for new partnerships to talk about what they're doing, and we welcome that as well, and we'll be looking for those as well for our next meetings. So thank you all. Safe travel back home, and be careful as you drive. Don't text, don't speed, don't drink and drive. All of the above. Thank you.
Carl.